Iconic riff. So, Ryan, how do you say the name of that band?
ZZ Top?
So, ZZ Top.
Are they American?
Yeah, they are.
Or is it ZZ Top then?
It's ZZ Top. I mean, when I moved to Canada or when I started dating my wife, Canadian, Sandra, and somehow Z came up, I go, what is Z? What the heck?
Well, we were just talking about, you didn't even think of Canadians growing up, right?
Not in any other way.
Not in a negative way, but it's like you were living in Iowa.
I lived in Iowa. I mean, we're in the United States. We knew Canadians were neighbors to the north. And
great neighbors to the north.
Great neighbors to the north. I mean, there was the NATO alliance. You know, you knew all these things, but I never thought of them, or it was never discussed in any other way. Any way that was probably different than, let's say, England or Great Britain or European countries. It was another country. But as the reputation is earned and deserved by Americans, and oftentimes their lack of global awareness, but that certainly fit into it. But anyway, ZZ Top.
Are you ever going to say Zed?
No. I mean, that just is... I just can't. I can't do it. I just can't. ZZ Top. It's not ZZ Top.
I guess if that's their name, maybe phonetically speaking, it technically is accurate for a Canadian to call them ZZ Top because that is their name. They want it pronounced phonetically.
Yes, thank you. They want it pronounced.
I'll call them ZZ Top. That's what they want.
Thank you. All right.
But I didn't know who they were before. Like, I know the song. I didn't know who they were that well, though. So I saw ZZ, and I was like, I guess it's ZZ. But now they know ZZ, and I know they're American. All right, ZZ it is. No, it flows better, honestly.
And it does, but that's such a great song, great riff. Basketball show. Let's talk a little bit about the CEBL, Canadian Elite Basketball League. The Stingers are at home on Tuesday night. Back here out at Expo Center. But if you haven't gotten your tickets, please go to stingers.ca. Get your tickets. Come out. It's such a great experience, such a great show. Now, the Stingers, the team right now is struggling. They are struggling a bit. They've got the consistent great play of the young man that we had on our show last week. And yes,
Sean East the second, 51% from three. I imagine you're gonna say him.
Absolutely. Sean
51% from three, 18 of 35 from the field, started 7 games, played 7 games, 55% for the field, 51% from three, as I said. That's ridiculous.
He's playing so well. And the thing about Sean that's really fun to watch is his ability to fit in with the team while still having an individual style of play that interprets what's going around him so well.
Reminds me of Shea a little bit, maybe?
Absolutely.
Like being able to score individually.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
He's averaging 24.5 points a night.
Yeah.
And still being able to, unfortunately, OKC's winning a little bit more in their league than the Stingers are, but.
Well, that's right. And I mean, it's still early in the season. This is an extended season this year of 24 games, 24 regular season games, but we are 7 games into
almost
it.
A third of the way through already.
And I mean, the Stingers have to start figuring things out, and nobody's more aware of that than head coach Jordan Baker and his staff in getting his team to find some to find some chemistry. Last night they gave up 60 points, they being the Stingers, to the Montreal Alliance, losing 105-83, and it wasn't even that close. They were down 24 at halftime, I believe. So the Stingers are struggling. Their post presence is limited. A couple of the post players they were hoping that were going to come in for different reasons have not been able to join the team, one because of injury, one because of just a personal decision. And so the Stingers, by CEBL standards, are quite small, but they still have very good players at skill positions. And so, yeah, they're going to have to start figuring things out to get competitive again when they square off. Just looking up right now who they play on Tuesday in the Expo Center. I'll find it eventually.
I have it right here if you'd like.
Yeah, if you'd find it, please.
Tuesday?
Yes.
They're going to, it's Saturday. They played today again. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong schedule.
Okay. All right.
I have to, wait, sorry, 1 second.
But anyway, the Stingers, but having said that, there is no better atmosphere for sports fans than to go to
Blackjacks.
So they play the Ottawa Blackjacks.
Yeah.
Blackjacks are a good team, but a beatable
2-3.
So they're a beatable team. So the Stingers, I know, will.
I think I'm there for that one, actually.
Are you there?
I think I'm the reporter for that one.
All right. So Ryan will be sideline. I'll be doing the color analysis along with Doug McLean.
I'll be in there making fun of them occasionally during the broadcast.
Not the Stingers, Doug and Paul. Let's be clear about that.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
No. So, but get on out there. Get your tickets. This is a great basketball league, emphasizing the development of Canadian talent. We need you to be there. We need you to support this team, and you're going to have the time of your life. Your kids are going to love it. The Stingers put on a first-class show every home game. Prices are reasonable.
Food's reasonable, too. It's not like up, like the food and the drinks are it's like $5-6 for a drink.
Absolutely. The Stingers have worked hard with Expo, with the city of Edmonton and Explore Edmonton to make this a family-friendly, affordable experience. So we would love to see you come out to the game on Tuesday night.
Regardless of win or lose, it's always a good show, as you mentioned, right? Like it's outside of that, even if the Blackjacks were to win, it's still where it's worth going to and seeing it is professional basketball,
It's
right?
professional basketball, high-level basketball. These guys can flat-out play. And Sean East is worth the price of admission just in and of himself. I think he's the best. He's certainly the best guard since Xavier Moon that we've had in the Edmonton Stingers uniform. He may even be the best player overall that we've had since then. So hopefully the rest of the team can find their equilibrium and be ready to go and take Ottawa on and get a W on this coming Tuesday night. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, I'm going to play part of the interview that I had with Ben Golliver. And bear in mind, Ben and I talked on Wednesday. We had a great discussion. So much of the content is relevant. It doesn't take into account the game one results, but I think what you're going to find is Ben frames both teams so beautifully. So go grab a coffee, make your way back, listen to the interview with Ben Golliver here on the Basketball Show on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Welcome to the Deep Dive on the Basketball Show. I'm your host, Paul Sir. Pleased to be joined by Ben Golliver of the Washington Post. And Ben, we're pre-recording this for my Saturday show, but it's also for my podcast. And Ben, we just got the news that Tom Thibodeau has been fired by the New York Knicks. And what's your response? Was this expected or a total surprise or not that big of a surprise at all?
Well, Paul, are you telling me that Leon Rose and the Knicks ownership, they were trying to give you some good content for your shows? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing. Absolutely.
They wanted to time it for maximum impact.
Absolutely.
We're taping this as the pink slip is still in the air, I guess, as they would say.
I wonder if Tibbs even knows.
Yeah, it's interesting timing just because they just had this Eastern Conference Finals run. For the first time in 25 years, they make it that far. And so usually you don't see the coach fired at a peak moment, right? But I think with Tibbs, we've seen it time and again. He wears on people, and his style in terms of playing his starters such heavy minutes, in terms of being so stubborn and unbending with his lineup combinations, not playing young guys, not developing young players. I think it's understandable for everybody just be kind of exhausted. And then also I think it's understandable for ownership to say, hey, we had some decent guys that he didn't play, because once he did give them opportunities in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers, some of those guys had some good moments, right? So you just kind of wonder, was there a missed opportunity for New York? Could they have made the finals this year after taking care of a team like the Boston Celtics, such a good team in the second round? Did he get out coached by Rick Carlisle in the conference finals? I think those are all very valid concerns. And to me, the straw that should have broke the camel's back here, he's supposed to be a defensive-minded coach. His defense is supposed to be very formidable. It usually has been during his career. They gave up so many easy baskets in a game-deciding Game 6 against the Pacers. How many runouts and leak-out layups did guys like Pascal Siakam get in that game? And so it kind of goes back to, well, if you're the defensive-minded coach and the defense is looking like a mess in the biggest game of the season, something's not right. Maybe we have to change directions.
Historically, there have been some coaches in the NBA who I think are fixers as opposed to developers. And maybe that's not the exact terminology that's valid, but I think way, way back to Bill Musselman, he always was brought in to right the ship and to toughen a team up. But his shelf life, using that term again, was pretty short usually. But think even back to Doug Collins and the Chicago Bulls and the success that they were starting to have before the mantle was passed over to Phil Jackson, and then all of the championships that followed, and even more recently, Ben, Mark Jackson, and being let go, and Steve Kerr stepping in, and the Golden State Warriors were on an upward trajectory. This is not without precedent, in other words, in NBA history, is it?
Well, I think, it's maybe not the most politically correct phrase, but you hear that idea about like the starter wife or the starter home, right? I think that's kind of what you're getting at with some of these coaches where, you got to turn things around. You got to get a bad team and turn it into a, respectable outfit. That's what Thibodeau did. I mean, when he took over the Knicks, they hadn't been in the playoffs in 7 years. His first season, he gets them back in the playoffs. I mean, that's a quick turnaround. 2 years later, they win a series in 2023. It's the first time they won a series in a decade, right? So they clearly needed some stability and some order with that organization, and he brought that. But then obviously the goals and the talent changed while he was there. I mean, they go out and they get Jalen Brunson. They trade for Karl Anthony Towns. They make a big trade for Mikal Bridges. They make another big trade for OG Anunoby. I mean, those are big swing moves. Those are ownership in the front office saying, we need huge results for this. And I thought it was a great season for the Knicks, honestly. They were so bad during the regular season against good teams. I did not expect them to make the conference finals or beat the Celtics like they did. And I thought they showed some clear progress in terms of, just their offensive ceiling by bringing in Karl Anthony Towns. But there was some slippage defensively, and I think there was some disappointment in terms of how he used the bench and how he was able to, get the most out of Mikal Bridges. And so I think the front office and ownership group is looking at this saying, hey, we did our job. We got all the talent you could possibly want. And we think we can get a different coach, maybe with a different style, who's going to be able to take them further in the playoffs. And that's exactly what happened with Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. And I guess I would just say I don't like the Knicks' talent that much to think that they have a championship ceiling, right? Jalen Brunson's very small guard. He's had some issues in the playoffs a number of times where his effectiveness comes down. Karl Anthony Towns can't guard anybody. Bridges just lacks the physicality of the best wings in the league, and so that's going to hold them back. So, to be honest, like I understand if you're going to try to, change course because you need a new voice and because Tibbs is wearing on you. If you really think you're going to find a Steve Kerr to take this team to a championship, that's where I start to get kind of skeptical.
I'm with you on that, Ben. And in my notes before you and I were going to talk, and before we knew of Thibodeau's firing, I wanted to delve into briefly the rebuild in the offseason of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks, because clearly the Knicks are a piece or two short of that, what I would call champion pedigree, for the reasons you just described and something you mentioned earlier. Part of the reason they didn't get back on defense, I believe, is A, fatigue, B, Indiana's superb effort and energy in Game 6. But C, they're kind of a plodding team in a lot of respects, and they need to, I think, add a couple of more athletic pieces in a couple of positions that really are going to make a big difference for them.
Well, they definitely like the slower style. I mean, that's how Brunson wants to play. You're always going to play your best player's style, right? So but that comes with some cost too, right? Because he pounds the ball so much, it doesn't really create a lot of opportunities for those wings to have their own scoring chances, right? And so, it's not a surprise to me that somebody like Mikal Bridges gets marginalized, or OG Anunoby, maybe he looks great some nights and he looks not so great some other nights, because those guys are not the priorities, and because the ball doesn't move. They just don't really get very many assists. And for a good offense, it's so isolation dependent. So if I was their front office and ownership group, I would be looking at a coach who could bring a little bit more of a modern attack, right? A little bit more pace, a little bit more ball movement, a little bit more share of the wealth, and to see if you can kind of create more of a whole is greater than the sum of the parts dynamic with the pieces that they have accumulated, because they're going to find it very hard to make trades now that they've loaded up with so many big salaries. They're not that they're backed into a corner, but it's just going to be more difficult.
Well, and they're not the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, I think they're in a position where they're going to have a real tough time making any big trades with the kind of contracts that they have. But I agree with you. You have to go with what your best player provides. But when you forego basic offensive movement almost entirely and rely just on the pounding of the ball and isolation basketball, that does have a ceiling. And I think they broke through that ceiling with a surprise win over Boston that I think would be awfully hard to duplicate going forward in the future. So it will be interesting now, not only to see who the front office picks for replacing Thibodeau, but if they make any kind of tweaks or strategic moves in the lineup itself.
Well, one good thing for the Knicks is they can look and say, well, Boston is going to be out next year because Tatum's injured, right? The
Right.
Milwaukee Bucks will probably look a lot different because Giannis is dealing with Dame Lillard's injury, and he might change teams. You could look at the Philadelphia 76ers. They're no longer a factor because of all their injury and age issues, right? So if you're the Knicks, even though you did get some good breaks against the Celtics in the second round, when you look ahead to next year, you should still feel like you're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I think Indiana and Cleveland are going to be there, but the Knicks should be right there in the mix too. There's a real opportunity. There's a real window for them. And so I do think that's probably part of the motivation here too, from ownership in the front office, thinking we've assembled a lot of really good players. We stack up really well against almost everybody in the Eastern Conference. Maybe if we change coaches and find a different voice, we will be able to get over the hump and make the finals and really get people excited.
I'm talking with Ben Golliver of the Washington Post here on the Deep Dive on the Basketball Show. All right, Ben, that's a great segue into the NBA Finals are finally set. You've got OKC, a juggernaut, against Indiana. Now, here's my opening question to you. Is Indiana OKC light, or does Indiana have the talent pool and unique quality? Do they have the unique qualities that they can make a series of this with Oklahoma City?
You know, I do kind of look at the Pacers as the JV Thunder, I'll be honest. And, going back and forth between these series a little bit, I just thought the intensity level of the games in the Western Conference and the talent level was just meaningfully higher than it was in the Eastern Conference. I don't want to take anything away from the Pacers because I think they clearly are the most deserving team from that conference. They went 12-4 through the playoffs. I mean, that's no joke. I mean, that's really taking care of business, especially when you have to beat a top seed like the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they just smacked them. So this is a good team. I just think the Thunder are better. The biggest difference to me, is on the defensive end. The Thunder are in the playoffs are about 10 points per possession better on defensive rating than the Pacers. That is a massive gulf, right? I mean, that's the difference between a close game and a blowout, basically. And the Thunder have racked up a lot of blowouts in this year's playoffs. And so I think a lot of the focus for the series will be on the Thunder defense and the Pacers offense. Can Indiana score enough against, Oklahoma City to make it interesting? But I actually think the series will be decided on the other end. I think the Pacers defense is sort of the weakest link of all these four units. I think the Oklahoma City offense is excellent, especially because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been so consistent throughout the playoffs. And because they passed some really big tests against teams like Denver and Minnesota, and I just don't think the Pacers are going to have enough defense to hold up and slow down the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that's where the series is going to be won. And I'll be honest, I think the Thunder defense is going to slow down Indiana too, but I do think it's the Pacers defense that's going to be the weakest link.
It's interesting. You talk about the JV, Indiana being the JV version of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was correlating that to what was a real impressive defensive effort by Ryan Nembhard in Game 6 against the Knicks, and what he did, the effort he put in to guarding Jalen Brunson with, being very, very effective. And by the way, one thing that jumped out to me, Ben, was one of the most frustrating aspects of NBA defense is the way that screens are defended 35 feet from the basket of a big goes out, sets a screen, and automatically there's a switch, and you got a big on a skilled offensive guard going one-on-one, where Nembhard and Lou Dort in the game against Minnesota and his guarding of Anthony Edwards, they clearly show this all comes down to effort, number one, being committed to getting over the screen. And once you're over the screen, getting help from your defensive partner who's guarding the man setting the screen, and then helping and recovering and getting back to the matchup that you want on defense. Nembhard did a great job that night. Dort did a great job on Anthony Edwards doing the same thing. It's been nice in the playoffs to actually see teams going back to what I would call old school defense.
Well, I love getting in the nitty gritty with you. I think they are calling this now screen navigation, right? The
Yes.
defenders who are able to fight over the top and stick with the guys. Now, you saw the shift to the auto switches out on the perimeter when teams were going with more versatile lineups. And so the idea was like, well, we can just save everybody the wear and tear, save some energy. We'll just switch everything. And because we have a whole bunch of wings out there, we won't really be in too much trouble. But in the playoffs, of course, they're going to have the guy setting the screen be defended by the biggest, slowest player, right? They're going to bring that guy into the action. And so like you're describing, it creates a lot of very favorable opportunities if you just auto switch for the offense, because now a guy like Shea can go against a Rudy Gobert, who's going to have real trouble staying with him, 25 feet from the hoop. That's not going to end very well, right? Or in the case of the Eastern Conference, do you really want Karl Anthony Towns and his slow feet trying to guard Tyrese Halliburton? Good luck. That's not going to work out very well, right? So there is a huge advantage to avoiding the auto switch. Now, what you see from the Thunder, though, they can afford to be even more aggressive when they're fighting over those screens. Sometimes they're even like plowing through the guy who's screening. They'll take fouls in those situations because they're trying to set a tone with the officials where they'll let a lot of physical play go. And what they don't worry about is foul trouble, because if Dort gets into foul trouble, you bring in Caruso. If Caruso gets into foul trouble, you bring in Cason Wallace. All those guys are incredible perimeter defenders, right? Even Jalen Williams is a great perimeter defender for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so they can afford to be, I don't want to call it reckless, but incredibly aggressive in those screen scenarios, fighting over the top, creating contact, sticking close to ball handlers, because they have so much depth behind them in terms of the other guys capable with those same skills. Now, the problem that we saw, say, for Minnesota, anytime McDaniels wanted to play hard on the perimeter, if he got into foul trouble, Minnesota had nobody behind him to put him in those spots. And so that's really when Shea was able to get loose. There was just nobody left to guard him. And so I think for Indiana, the challenge is, you've got Nembhard, you've got a couple guys there on the perimeter who are good perimeter defenders, but they don't have as many as Oklahoma City. And so if there's foul trouble, that's definitely going to be favoring the Thunder, because I think the Pacers, eventually they're going to run out of bodies. And I say that because, one of their players, Jarris Walker, he had an injury in Game 6, so he's not going to be available to start the series. And they've had some other just like minor injury issues on the perimeter that's holding them back a little bit. So, it's just one more advantage where like the Thunder do it great, the Pacers do it well. But I think in this case, doing it great is probably going to carry the day.
I'm gonna shine the spotlight for a moment on Lou Dort. I saw Lou Dort play twice at Arizona State his 1 year he was there. And what I left was I also saw him when he was in high school. He actually came to Edmonton and was part of a national championship event that we were hosting. He was impressive as a youngster, just in terms of his physical strength and athleticism. When I went to Arizona State, I thought, yeah, the guy's really athletic, but man, he didn't have much of an offensive game. So I thought, I don't know, maybe he's just one of those great athletes that just quite doesn't have the skill set offensively to get to the NBA. Another brilliant observation on my part, Ben. So thank God I'm not an NBA scout because can you think of a more imposing perimeter defender over the last, say, 10 to 15 years than Lou Dort in terms of his ability to lock down the very best of the best offensive players with his defensive his defensive strength and capabilities.
I think the other guy on his team, Alex Caruso, is pretty close to him.
Yes.
I think that's a good comparison. I think a lot of people would look at a young Kawhi Leonard and put Lou Dort in that category too. Let's give some credit, though, to the Thunder shooting coaches. I think they brought in Chip England from the Spurs, if I'm not mistaken. They had to build up Lou Dort's offensive game. That's why he was overlooked by a lot of pro scouts.
Correct.
And he really struggled in his first couple of years offensively in the NBA. It's an amazing development story. The toughest moment of this postseason run, I think it was Game 5, right, against the Nuggets, where Lou Dort had 3 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. I mean, this guy he couldn't, throw the ball in the ocean a couple of years ago. And in the highest stake moment, where they're getting pressured by, Nikola Jokic and the 2023 champion Nuggets, who comes through for them shooting 3-pointers? None other than Lou Dort, the guy whose entire career he's been the weakest link offensively. So an amazing player development story, great confidence. He's a longtime Thunder player. Him and Shea are sort of the old guard for that team, which is such a young team. And it's a really cool story that he's finally getting to pay the rewards, the dividends, after, all that time he's invested there in OKC.
It's closing time on the basketball show on Saturday. Paul Sir, Ryan Reed, taking you to the end of this great program, and a few things that we want to talk about, Ryan, as we go down the stretch run here. First of all, I want to touch on something that Ben was talking about at the end of his interview that we just played, and that was a gentleman by the name of Chip England. Chip England is a shooting coach. Chip played at Duke and was a great shooter, and actually played in Calgary in I think it was called the World Basketball Association. It was a 6'5" and under league back in the 80s. And Chip was a great shooter for Duke, as I mentioned. And where he has really, I think, made his mark was at San Antonio, particularly around Kawhi Leonard. When Kawhi Leonard came out of San Diego State, he could not shoot at all. Similar to what Ben's remarks were about Lou Dort coming out of Arizona State. In fact, I've mentioned this on the show before. I saw Lou play at Arizona State, and I just didn't think he had the offensive game to honestly be an NBA player. But through his hard work and under the direction of Chip England, Lou has become a very effective spot-up three-point shooter.
Just a quick background on Chip England. He started his career in Denver as an assistant coach, player development coach in 2003. He did that till 2005. Then, as you mentioned, he joined the Spurs in 2005, just after that season with Denver, and was their assistant coach, their shooting coach, up until 2022. And since 2022, he's been with OKC helping Lou Dort with shooting. So a quick background on Chip England there for you.
Well, I'm really glad that you and I'm really glad that you put that whole picture out there for us, Ryan, because
basically my life he's spent coaching shooting.
Absolutely. And here's my major point. One of the developmental challenges I believe that is most overlooked is shooting. Not just learning how to shoot, but learning how to become a great shooter. And there are all, number one, and this is my opinion, my opinion only. Most coaches who coach basketball teams are not shooting coaches. They have their learned experience. Some are very good. Some maybe you could question whether they're good at what they're doing. But there are very specific techniques that I have seen out there being taught to people that are just black and white wrong in terms of learning how to shoot. So I won't go into that right now, but here's the deal. Chip England is the real deal. And here's why. It's because he can shoot. And one of the things that I am adamant about is that the best shooting coaches are shooters themselves who understand why they shoot the way they do and what they have had to do to become a great shooter. There are opportunities, and I'm not saying that they're not valuable, but there are places you can go that are shooting, they have shooting machineries and computerized programs that really help, that really, I think, zero in on the data. And it really comes back to my opinion of analytics. Analytics is a snapshot. It is a small piece of the puzzle. The key to being a great shooter, there's no secret. There's no secret
Mechanics?
at all. Mechanics is a starting point, yes. But if mechanics are the be-all, end-all, why in the world can Tyrese Halliburton shoot? Because mechanically, he's very different than most shooters
That's
are.
what they said when the Kings drafted him. They were like, he's never going to be able to shoot in the NBA.
Were they right on the spot? That's why the Kings are the Kings.
No, the Kings didn't. They thought he was good. They thought that he'd figure it out, and he did.
Oh, and he did.
But
then good on the Kings.
But they traded him for
mistake. I don't know which is a bigger mistake. Well, no, the two big mistakes in the playoffs right now are the Clippers trading Gilgeous-Alexander, although in that environment he may not have developed into the player he is. Same with Halliburton. It really,
on Sacramento, he was so on his way. He was. When Fox was missing, he was averaging a 15 and 10, and he was like 20.
Yeah.
So he was totally on his way. We got like Sabonis, obviously. Like we didn't sell low on, like that was his value. He was an all-star level player, but he's superseded that ever since then.
Absolutely. So the bottom line with shooting is its mechanics is a starting point, but then it's what you do with those mechanics. Machines will not make you a great shooter. Like muscle memory, there's some value to that. There's some value, but predictable reps are not the way to become a great shooter. I'm very biased, of course, but my son Steve, who has held the NCAA three-point shooting percentage career record for players making over 300 threes in their career, he has held that for 17 years. Or going on 18. And the way Steve became a great shooter is when nobody was looking. In the gym, working hard, and he still does to this day at 42. And he's still regarded as the best shooter in the 3x3 basketball world. And that's because of the hard work he put in. That goes the same for Jerry West. That goes the same for Steph Curry. There are no shortcuts. There is no machine. And the worst and the one thing that coaches do not do enough of in practice is put dedicated time aside for kids to work on their shooting and help kids with drills that they should work on when nobody's around. And those are the key words, Ryan, and you know this because you were a good shooter. You become a good shooter when nobody's looking. It's not when you're in the gym hucking up stuff with your buddies for 3 hours. That's fun time. That's social time. That's not improving time. So there just are no shortcuts, and there's no technology that's going to do it for you. It'll help you, but it won't make it happen for you.
I had a question for you on that topic. I was having this conversation with my friends yesterday. For shooting, can anyone become a great shooter? And to what extent can you improve your shooting if you're just not maybe bound to be a good shooter? Or can anyone just be a very good shooter if they put in like X amount of work? If they put in like hours and hours and hours, can they figure it out and become a great shooter? Or is it a genetic thing a little bit or predisposition a little bit where you are going to be better no matter what than somebody?
There's an element of that. There's some people that can play the piano better than other people who will work really, really hard and never become a concert pianist. And the same with shooting. There are just some people that have that gift. Whatever the sport, whatever the art, whatever it is, there are just gifts that are given to people. Joe Mauer, the great baseball player for the Twins, now Hall of Famer, when he was 3 years old, his dad would toss pebbles to him, and Mauer would take like this very narrow stick and be whacking the pebbles at 3 years old. I mean, he was just destined.
And he's a pitcher.
No, he was a catcher.
Oh, my bad. I think you said pitcher.
No. His dad would pitch rocks to him, pebbles.
Yeah.
And Mauer would whack him with a little stick that he had. But anyway, you can become a better shooter, but But the great shooters have something, have some extra ingredient, confidence, belief, whatever. But form is not the be-all, end-all. Perfect form, exact form is not the be-all, end-all. The follow-through is the be-all, end-all. Knees are the be-all, end-all, but not all of the other mechanics. You can work with those in a variety of ways. You don't have to retool something to fit a certain form.
Well, look at Kobe Bryant. The epitome of work ethic, and he still wasn't an elite three-point shooter.
Yeah, neither was Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
Yeah, they weren't. So before we get to the end of the program, let's talk about our poll question.
The most likely NBA Finals outcome, we've been talking about it all show. The options you had are OKC in 5, OKC in 6, OK in 7, or Indiana in any fashion. The winner was OKC in 6 at 55.3%. Second place was Indiana in any fashion at 23.7%. OKC in 7 at 13.2%. And then 7.9% said OKC in 5. They just went out gentleman's sweep.
Interesting. That again, I always give credit to our audience because that's a very bright response in terms of the percentages, because I think we all feel, myself included, OKC is going to win this series. That they are the better team. But Indiana's first game win has, I think, it made the series much more interesting than if they, for instance, had been throttled in game one, if the Pacers, that is. That would have been a very different series. But now our interest is piqued. Denver did the same thing to OKC. We all know what the response was, but it was a tough 7-game series. So, it's exciting time. That game will be tomorrow. I'll be putting my blog out on Monday with the 3 from Deep blog. We'll talk about it in the next week podcast. Next weekend, I'm excited because we have the Toronto Tempo president, Teresa Resch, going to join us. We'll talk WNBA. And the great Jack Armstrong will be joining us, too, among
Toronto
other
royalty.
guests.
So, Toronto royalty right
Toronto
there.
royalty. It's about time we get back and talk some Raptors and Tempo. So, as we wrap up our program today, as we do every week at this time, I remember my son, Ben, who left us far too early. It's his song to David in the background right now, dedicated to my son Sam's close friend, David Finkelman, whose life was tragically taken in a needless car accident. So many people are out there suffering the loss of loved ones. We certainly know the pain that goes with that, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. And as I always remind everyone every week, treat each other with kindness. Think the best of each other. We do not know what people are going through in their lives. We do not walk in their shoes. So expect the best, think the best of others, and always be kind to each other. Ryan, been a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Cheers to Oilers. Cheers to NBA basketball. Great. I love this time of year for that because it's not like a final NBA Finals every other day. Or about every other day. It's awesome.
It really is a great time of the year. And to be in the City of Champions with this team battling for a Stanley Cup, we're really, really fortunate. Most of all, thanks to you for listening today. We really appreciate your coming along with us on this Saturday. Hope you have a great week on and off the court. We'll see you next week on the Basketball Show on your sports leader, Sports 1440.